You wake before sunrise. You kneel in a stone chamber, voice hoarse from midnight chants. The priests watch. The gods don't answer. But you speak anyway, because if your words fail, the sun might not rise, and everyone will blame you. You were born for the gods. You're not just some farmer's daughter. You're temple property before you even cry. Born into a high-status family in Thebes during the reign of Seti I. And guess what? Your name's already on a scroll in Karnak's priest registry. You're breathing, but they're already planning your future, for Amun. By age 5, your toys are gone. You now hold reed pens and memorize hymns about cosmic order. Other girls learn to weave. You learn to chant before sunrise with no mistakes. If you slip up, the priest hits the floor with a staff, loud. Not at you, just enough to scare you straight. Your meals are inspected. Your bathwater? Blessed. Even your sleep is watched to keep demons out. You're not being raised. You're being processed into a vessel, a living ornament. You will serve the god Amun like it's your only purpose, because in this system it is. At 7, you're brought into the temple's outer court. The priests don't smile. You're made to kneel and recite the litany of Shu. You don't even know who Shu is. Doesn't matter. You get it right. Barely. The priest nods once. You're in. Now you're officially a Shemayet, a junior temple girl. And the rules hit like a chariot. No meat. No touching the unclean. No playing with outsiders. You wake at dawn, bathe 4 times a day, and keep your head shaved to show purity. It's not for health. It's to make you forget you were ever a child. But here's the kicker. You're not some powerless slave. You live inside Karnak, the most powerful temple in Egypt, bigger than 20 football fields, richer than most cities. The high priests manage land, taxes, even armies. And you're their future priestess. That comes with danger, but also real power. The people outside the walls bow when they see your robes. Even nobles don't mess with you, because Amun's voice is sacred, and someday you might speak it. For now, you scrub floors and learn how to stand still during processions while carrying incense bowls taller than your head. But keep going. The god is watching, and so is everyone else. The purification process is brutal. You're 13 now. That means you're due for purification, temple style. It's not some light sprinkle of water and a prayer. No, this is a full reset. Physically, mentally, spiritually. You're about to become one of the Wab priestesses, and that means one thing. You have to be pure. All the way through. Or you're out. First, your body. The rules are brutal. You're isolated for weeks in a special chamber near the sacred lake. You eat only bread, figs, and boiled onions. You bathe in cold water 4 times a day, even before sunrise. When the Nile wind makes your skin feel like papyrus peeling off bone, you're shaved bald again, head to toe. Hair is chaos. The gods don't like chaos. After that, the rites. A priest marks your body with sacred oil, frankincense, myrrh, and blue lotus. You smell like a perfume stand in a sandstorm. Then, he chants spells from the Book of the Divine Cow, while a second priest draws symbols on your skin in ochre. You are now the living property of the gods. On the final day, you're brought to the sacred lake, not to swim, to submerge. You step in, naked, trembling. Priests line the shore, chanting. A statue of Amun stares down from its bark, and you go under. Not once, 3 times. To wash away the last traces of the mortal world. When you rise, gasping and blue from cold, the high priest examines you. Eyes, mouth, fingernails, feet. If he finds anything wrong, blemishes, birthmarks, even an uneven toenail, you're rejected. Sent back to your family in disgrace. And your family? They just lost decades of social status in one heartbeat. But if you pass, you get the white linen robe, the sacred sash, and the lotus pendant of the initiated. You step into the next rank. You're no longer a novice. You are pure, officially. Spiritually sterilized for divine service. Welcome to the House of Life. You're pure, shaved, starved, and scrubbed. Now you're relocated to the Purank, the House of Life. Sounds cozy? It's not. It's Egypt's version of a divine research lab smashed into a holy prison. No windows, no laughter, no mistakes allowed. Here's the deal. You live inside Karnak, one of the biggest temple complexes in history. Over 200 acres of stone halls, sacred pools, and courtyards so vast they echo when you breathe. You now train where only the elite of the elite are allowed. Your days begin before dawn. First job? Grind pigments for scribes and clean stylus kits. Miss a single tool, that scribe accidentally spills ink on your linen. Second job? Copy hymns. You sit for hours on a cold floor, hunched over papyrus, writing lines in cursive hieratic until your fingers cramp. Write one word wrong, rip the sheet. Start again. Then comes the astronomy training. You climb up to the temple roof at night and stare at the stars. The priests teach you how to track Sirius, Sopdet, because her rising predicts the Nile flood. You learn lunar cycles, shadow angles, and how to read the decan stars that measure the hours of the night. Miss a calculation? Someone's crops fail, no pressure. You study medical scrolls, dream interpretation manuals, and embalming chants. There are over 200 spells in the Book of the Dead, and they want you to memorize half of them by next year. You learn which herbs repel demons and which ones just smell weird. You know how to bandage a wound and prep a corpse. You are 15. Oh, and don't forget etiquette. You must bow exactly 27 degrees to a senior priestess. Don't laugh. They measure it. Most temple girls don't last. They break, cry, collapse, or mysteriously disappear. But you adapt, fast. You stop talking. You stop blinking. You absorb everything. Because here's the secret. Every scroll you master, every star you memorize, every rite you perform, it makes you harder to replace. And in a world where status is carved in stone, that's the only protection you've got. You're not just a priestess in training anymore. You're a walking archive. And the gods are watching. You become the goddess. You're 16 now, and things just got weirder. You've passed every chant, ritual, and star test they threw at you. So guess what? It's time to stop studying the gods and start becoming one. Specifically, Hathor, the goddess of love, beauty, music, and madness. Perfect fit, right? It starts with the Festival of the Beautiful Reunion. Every year, Hathor sails from her temple in Dendera to reunite with her divine husband, Amun, at Luxor. And this time, you're playing her. Not metaphorically, literally, you are Hathor now. Embody her wrong, and it's not just embarrassing, it's sacrilege. They dress you in gold so bright it could blind a crocodile. Perfumed oils, a wig piled high, lapis jewelry, and a crown shaped like cow horns. You look divine, you feel ridiculous. The priests chant while you're loaded onto a gilded river bark. Hundreds of people scream praise from the banks. You smile and wave like royalty, but your knees are jelly and the incense is making you gag. You arrive in Luxor after hours of river theatrics, drums pounding, priests dancing. You disembark to meet Amun's statue. It's housed in a massive gold shrine, staring at you like it knows you haven't slept in 2 nights. Time for the sacred embrace. It's a ritual fusion between you and the god. Don't ask what that means. You dance before him, swaying in perfect rhythm while chantresses sing behind you. You lift the sistrum and shake it just right. If your movement pleases him, the priests nod. If it doesn't, well, some girls are quietly swapped out next year. After the ritual, there's wine, lots of it. Hathor's big on celebration. But drink too much, and you'll end up like that priestess who passed out mid-procession and was demoted to incense duty for life. Sacred politics and deadly etiquette. You've danced like a goddess and passed every test. Now you're 18, and the temple finally trusts you with something more dangerous than rituals: politics. Congratulations, you're part of the inner circle. Also, welcome to the snake pit. The high priest of Amun? He's not just a holy man. He controls land, food supply, armies, and most of the treasury in Thebes. Some say he has more power than the pharaoh. And now you're sitting in the same meetings. With generals, with tax scribes, with men who could order executions over a miscounted grain shipment. You're no longer just a priestess. You're now expected to speak, vote, and advise using words sharp enough to slice without leaving blood. That takes skill. Say too little, you're weak. Say too much, you're uppity. Misread the room, you vanish. These meetings happen in a chamber lined with painted cobras and ivory scepters. Symbolic, sure, but also a mood. You sit straight, speak only when invited, and never interrupt a senior official unless you want to be reassigned to latrine prayer duty in the desert. Outside the chamber, it gets worse. You now attend royal banquets as a spiritual advisor. You stand quietly behind the queen's chair, holding a lotus fan. But make no mistake, you're being watched. One wrong look at a noble? Scandal? One compliment misheard? Accusation. The palace thrives on rumors like a snake on sun. Then there's your sisters in the temple, other high-ranking priestesses who smile with their teeth and whisper with their knives. One leaves a crushed lotus under your mat. That's not a gift, it's a warning. Stay in your lane. So you study harder. You memorize every noble's family tree, their political enemies, their last temple donation, even which god their household favors. Information is survival. One day, the vizier of the north nods at you during council. That's not approval, it's a test. You nod back, exactly once, not too fast, not too warm, just right. Guardian of the dead and their gold. You're 20 now. You don't just serve the gods, you speak for the dead. You've been promoted to oversee the scroll room, where the most sacred spells and funerary texts are kept under lock, seal, and threat of divine retribution. You've memorized over 200 spells from the Book of the Dead. You can guide a soul through Do It, name the 42 judges of the afterlife, and explain why hearts must be lighter than feathers. This isn't poetry. It's law. One wrong recitation in the afterlife? The soul gets eaten by Ammit, a crocodile-lion-hippo hybrid with eternal heartburn. But the dead don't just need chants. They need gear. Amulets, Ushabti figurines, perfume oils, linen wrappings, protective scarabs. You choose them. You bless them. Rich families pay obscene amounts of silver for your opinion on tomb prep. You're the high priestess of high-priced death. You also help write custom funerary scrolls, bespoke insurance policies for the next life. You decide which spells they need based on how sinful they were and how much they're willing to bribe the gods. A drunk merchant wants a smooth ride to paradise? That's going to cost extra. Don't get sloppy. These scrolls are filed in the temple archives and double-copied by scribes. Errors are your fault. If a soul wanders into the field of knives instead of the field of reeds, it's your name the family curses for eternity. And of course, the grave goods. You track every shipment: gold masks, alabaster jars, lapis inlays, ostrich feather fans. You sign the ledgers, seal the crates, and personally approve the opening of vaults. You carry a ring that grants access to the burial inventory chambers. Lose it, and you might lose a hand. You run the temple's empire. By 22, you're no longer just guarding scrolls. You're managing a kingdom inside a kingdom. Temples don't just pray. They own land, warehouses, cattle, vineyards, even their own labor force. And guess what? You're now in charge of making sure it all runs without collapsing. Or mysteriously catching fire. You wear the seal ring that unlocks storerooms and treasury chests. Inside, ledgers thicker than stone tablets. Every shipment of grain, every head of livestock, every jug of wine, counted, taxed, recorded. You sign scrolls authorizing monthly rations for 80 scribes, 300 workers, 600 oxen, and one particularly entitled goose who bit the high priest last year. The Karnak temple alone owns over 90,000 acres of farmland and brings in thousands of deben in silver annually. When the harvest fails, people starve. When records fail, heads roll. Literally. Twice a month, you attend audits. A scribe reads out the stock tallies while you confirm they match temple logs. If anything's missing, grain, linen, gold, eyes turn to you. You don't get second chances. One priestess misplaced a shipment of frankincense. She now blesses roof tiles in a desert outpost no one can find on a map. Bribes? Always. Scribes slide coin purses under mats. Nobles ask for favors. Even palace officials suggest shortcuts. You smile, nod, and report every single one to the treasury guard captain. He owes you. You helped his son pass the ritual purity exam. Leverage is sacred too. Then come the offerings. You oversee daily donations to Amun: bread, beer, flowers, fruit, oxen. All tracked by weight and priest signatures. If a loaf's too small, someone's stealing. You send junior priestesses to check every kitchen fire and storage vat. One time, you caught a baker diluting flour with sand. He's still chewing on the punishment. Don't forget festival season. You coordinate resources for processions, banquets, fireworks, and mass sacrifices. Everything has to be perfect. If Amun's statue tilts even an inch during a parade, it's considered an omen. You can't afford omen. By now, people bow when you walk by. Scribes call you mistress of measures. Even the high priest keeps his tone respectful. Because you don't just serve the gods. You balance their books. And in Egypt, whoever controls the grain controls everything. The king's body, your ritual. You're 24, and the Pharaoh's holding his Sed Festival, his royal reboot ceremony. It's been 30 years since his coronation, and now he has to prove he's still strong enough to rule. Spoiler, he isn't. He limps like a busted ox cart. But the ritual says he's divine, so guess who has to make it look believable? You. You're summoned to Memphis, the old capital. Huge crowds, giant statues, nobles drunk on pomegranate wine. It's chaos dressed as religion. You're there as a key ritual performer, which means you carry the power to confirm the king's divinity. No pressure. First, you purify the courtyard with water from the Nile, mixed with natron and blue lotus. Then you recite the secret Heka spells, words so old no one even fully understands them. You don't flinch. You've been prepping for this since your voice cracked. Then it's time to bless the 9 batons of kingship. You kneel, present them to the pharaoh, and say the lines exactly. Miss a syllable, and it's seen as a divine rejection. A priest messed it up under Horemheb once. He disappeared before sundown. The next part is public, a massive procession. The pharaoh runs laps inside a sacred enclosure to prove his strength. You follow in full priestess regalia, holding a menet necklace and chanting blessings while trying not to trip over the hem of your leopard skin cloak. Every noble and commoner is watching. The guards have their hands on their blades. Then comes the part only a handful ever witness. The king's private rebirth ritual. You're taken to the inner chamber. You anoint him with sacred oils, place a crown of reeds on his head, and recite the incantations that supposedly reconnect him with the sun god Ra. You're close enough to see the sweat on his neck. One wrong move? That crown gets passed to his son, and your name gets erased from temple records. You get it right. He nods. You're dismissed. On your way out, the high priest murmurs, "Well done," which in temple language means, "You didn't die." The next day, new gold flows into the temple. Cattle are donated. Bread is piled to the ceiling. The people believe the king's still divine. They don't know you're the one who made it work. A solar eclipse and a city in panic. One morning, the sun doesn't rise. Not fully. The sky turns orange-gray, shadows bend the wrong way, and birds go silent. You already know what it is, a solar eclipse. But to the people of Thebes, it's the gods throwing a tantrum, and that means someone has to fix it. Guess who gets volunteered? You're dragged out of mourning rites mid-prayer. The high priest is pale. The sky is wounded, he says. You don't argue. You grab your scrolls, sistrum, and incense burners. The temple courtyard fills with nobles, farmers, guards, and beggars, all sobbing or screaming. Some are already blaming each other. You're just trying to breathe. First, you lead the ritual of Ra's protection. It's loud. Chanting, drums, frantic waving of burning papyrus bundles. The priests claim your voice drives back the serpent Apep, the cosmic chaos monster. In reality, you're buying time. Then comes the Omen reading. You climb the sanctuary steps and recite the position of the eclipse, using the star charts you memorized back when your teeth still wobbled. It will pass, you declare, voice steady. Ra still lives. The crowd starts to settle, mostly. Next, blame control. You summon junior priestesses to cleanse the sacred pool and scrub every statue of Amun. No unclean touch is allowed. You lead a procession around the temple walls, 3 full laps, sprinkling natron water while chanting spells against plague, drought, famine, and rebellion, just in case. Then the questions start. Is it a sign of betrayal? Has the king angered the gods? Should we sacrifice more oxen? You're expected to have answers. The priesthood is divided. Some call for harsher rituals. One even suggests locking up temple girls, just in case. You shut that down fast. Back inside, you write a new hymn to Sekhmet, the lion-headed goddess of war and plague. You direct the offering of wine, pomegranate seeds, and 7 lapis lazuli stones, believed to cool her wrath. Your throat burns from chanting, but the eclipse begins to pass. The sun returns. Slowly, the city exhales. People cheer. The priests look relieved. The high priest calls you chosen. But you know better. You didn't save the world. The moon just moved. Still, for one terrifying hour, Thebes turned to you like you were the sun. And no one's forgetting that. Especially you. God's wife of Amun, and it still isn't safe. You're 30. Most women your age are married with 3 kids and a garden full of onions. You've just been named God's wife of Amun. The top. The title once held by queens. The most powerful woman in all of Thebes, unless you count the goddess Mut herself. Your new uniform? Leopard skin cloak, gold collar, staff shaped like a cobra. You get your own estate, your own treasury, even your own boat crew. You don't answer to the high priest anymore. Now he bows to you. Even the pharaoh sends gifts. And not just thank you baskets, land deeds, livestock, jewelry. You're basically a second state. Your duties? You preside over major festivals. You lead processions. You perform the daily temple opening, which means you're the first to lay eyes on the statue of Amun each morning. You sing him awake. You anoint his lips. And once a year, you reenact his sacred union, a ritual so secret, half the priests don't even know the full script. But here's the part no one warns you about. Power makes you a target. There's a younger priestess now, pretty, smart, very obedient to the high priest. She follows your movements like a hawk pretending to be a dove. One missed ritual, one misstep, and she'll pounce. And she's not the only one. You still attend council, but the old men don't smile as much. The palace is shifting. There's talk of the pharaoh's death, talk of a new dynasty, and rumors? Oh, they're everywhere. That you've grown too rich, that you influence the Nile's flood schedule, that you once cursed a tax official for late payments. You didn't. You could, but you didn't. Even your own temple guards won't meet your eyes. You suspect bribes. Maybe worse. So you start training new girls. Quietly. You teach them how to read omens, how to speak without saying too much, how to chant through fear. Because you've learned the truth, even at the top, you're never safe. You sleep with one eye open, one hand on your scrolls. You wake before dawn, still serving a god who doesn't speak back. But you've outlived rivals, outlasted epidemics, and outsmarted politics sharper than any knife. You are God's wife of Amun, the voice of the divine, the queen of silence. And no one forgets your name, not even the gods. You are 7. The priest grabs your hand. Your parents stay behind. The crowd cheers. You now belong to the goddess Vesta and the Roman government, chosen child of Rome's sacred flame. Today, your parents march you into the forum. They tell you it is an honor. That is never a calm sentence in Rome. The Pontifex Maximus stands there in full priest gear. He controls the sacred calendar. He oversees major rituals. Today, he is shopping for a child. The next Vestal virgin must be chosen. What could go wrong? The rules are strict. You must be a freeborn girl. Both parents must be alive. No slavery in your family line. No visible defects. No scandal stuck to the household name. In short, you are state-approved. You stand in a cluster of other girls between 6 and 10 years old. 20 families were summoned. Everyone pretends to smile. No one looks relaxed. The priest inspects each of you with the focus of someone checking sacrificial animals. He is not choosing a personality. He is choosing a body for a goddess. Sometimes he picks one girl directly. Sometimes names are drawn by lot. Today he calls yours. Your mother's face freezes. Your father steps forward. Because the law says he must let you go. There is a formal act called captio. The Pontifex Maximus takes your hand and declares that he is taking you from your father in the name of Vesta. That sentence cuts your legal ties to your household. You are no longer under your father's authority. You now belong to the goddess and to Rome. You know a few basic facts. Service lasts 30 years. 10 years to learn. 10 years to perform the rituals. 10 years to teach. After that, in theory, you are free. Rome loves long paperwork. You walk away between guards and attendants. Behind you, your parents stay in the crowd like ordinary citizens at any show. Ahead of you rises the Temple of Vesta. Round. Sacred. Off limits to almost everyone. Training under sacred rule. Your new life starts fast. No settling in. No warm welcome basket. The older Vestals hand you a schedule, a new hairstyle, and a long list of things you must never do. You are now a novice, and Rome expects results. The first 10 years are all training. 10 years. Most Roman girls your age learn weaving and how to run a household. You learn ritual formulas that must never have a wrong word. A single mistake can force the entire ceremony to restart. If that happens during a major state rite, everyone glares at you like you caused a drought. You memorize prayers tied to specific days on the official calendar. The calendar is controlled by the same man who took you from your family, the Pontifex Maximus. He visits often. You speak to him with respect. He holds the power to punish Vestals. No pressure. You learn how to prepare mola salsa. It is a sacred salted flour mix used in many state sacrifices. It is not a snack. It is a vital part of the ritual. When priests sprinkle it on the animal, the gods are watching. If you mess up the preparation, the ritual loses its purity. Rome panics when purity drops. Discipline is strict. Errors bring correction, not a gentle talk, actual punishment. Beatings took place in secret to avoid public scandal. Rome loves order, not drama. You learn fast. You study omens, birds, thunder, odd events. You learn which signs demand rituals. You are a child, reading cosmic warnings. Fun. Older Vestals teach you the hairstyle of the order, called the Seniority. It copies the style worn by Roman brides. Rome likes symbolic messages. You are married to Vesta. The vow of chastity is not a joke. Breaking it is treated as a threat to the state. You sleep in the Atrium Vestae, surrounded by stone walls, rules, and constant supervision. Your childhood ends here. Guarding Rome's eternal fire. 10 years pass. You are no longer the nervous child who mixed salt and flour with shaking hands. You are now a full Vestal. Rome expects you to keep its heart burning. Literally. The sacred fire in the Temple of Vesta is not decorative. Romans believe it represents the life of the city. If it goes out, they fear famine, invasion, or divine rage. No pressure for a 20-year-old with a broom and a torch. Your shift schedule runs day and night. Vestals rotate duty, which means you stare at fire when everyone else sleeps. You add wood from specific trees. You tend the flame with careful movements, no sparks in the wrong place. The temple is made of wood and marble. One accident and you become the star of a very short news update. You clean the inner shrine. Ordinary Romans cannot enter. Even most priests stay outside. Only Vestals and the Pontifex Maximus have access. Inside sits sacred storage, including ritual tools and state treasures. Some Romans believe the Palladium, a sacred statue linked to the safety of the city, is kept here. You never confirm or deny anything. Secrets raise status. You prepare the sacred fire each morning. You sweep ashes and collect them for special rituals. People use them in purification ceremonies. Rome loves symbolic dirt. During the Vestalia festival in June, your workload explodes. For several days, the city floods the forum. Bakers bring offerings. Mothers ask for blessings. The temple opens its doors to women only. You manage crowds, supervise offerings, and endure questions about fertility that you are legally not involved in. After the festival, the temple is closed for cleaning and purification. You help with that too. You scrub, sweep, and redo ritual steps until every surface meets divine standards. Rome trusts you to maintain cosmic hygiene. Letting the flame die is the worst failure. If it happens, an inquiry follows. The Pontifex Maximus demands answers. Punishment is likely. People look at you like you personally invited disaster. The last time the fire went out, records blamed a Vestal for negligence. She faced a private beating. Rome enjoys private cruelty. Stepping out before all Rome. You finally leave the temple walls, and Rome reacts like a celebrity just stepped into the street. You ride in a covered carriage called a carpentum. It has 2 horses and the legal right to push traffic aside. Even consuls move out of your way. Your escorts clear paths during public events. You do not walk like an ordinary woman. You glide with guards, attendants, and a state-approved aura that says, "Touch me and the gods take notes." The law protects you fiercely. Anyone harming a Vestal faces death. Rome treats your safety as national security. Public ceremonies become your calendar. Triumphs, oaths, treaties, wills, elections, and major sacrifices all demand a Vestal presence. You are a living guarantee that the gods approve. When generals celebrate victories, you sit in honored seats near senators and top magistrates. People cheer the warrior, but they glance at you to check if the victory feels legitimate. You also witness legal documents. When someone signs a major will, a Vestal may attend. Your presence signals honesty. Romans assume you cannot lie because you serve Vesta. This is hilarious, since politics never runs on truth. One strange power sets you apart. If you meet a condemned prisoner by chance while he is being led to execution, he can be pardoned. The rule states that the encounter must be accidental. You cannot stage a rescue mission. Still, people watch streets carefully, hoping their friend accidentally crosses your path. Judges hate this loophole. Crowds love you at the games. You sit in a special box with a clear view. Gladiators sometimes salute you. Some spectators act like your gaze can bless their bets. Rome mixes religion and gambling with no shame. You attend sacred processions. You carry ritual items, chant formulas, and maintain a serious face while half the city treats it like a parade. Failure to appear signals bad omens. If you look ill or upset, rumors spread fast. The Vestals look worried, can spark panic faster than a grain shortage. Life inside the Vestal residence. You do not return to a cozy family home. You now live in the Atrium Vestae, a large state-funded residence behind the temple. It sits in the Roman Forum, right next to senators arguing about taxes and generals bragging about wars. Your neighbors are loud, powerful, and usually armed. The house itself is impressive. 3 stories, a central courtyard with a pool called the Impluvium, marble floors in places, storage rooms full of grain, oil, and ritual supplies. Statues of former Vestals line the courtyard. They stare at you every morning like a silent reminder that retirement is possible if you avoid scandals. You share the space with 5 other Vestals. Each has a private room. Privacy is limited. Doors stay open often because supervisors and servants move through the building. You never truly relax. Someone always watches, listens, or reports. Rome does not trust holy women without oversight. Meals are simple but steady. Bread, olives, cheese, fruit, and whatever the kitchen slaves prepare. You eat together at regular times. No lounging with snacks. Rules even control chewing. Talking during meals is allowed, but gossip can become dangerous. Rumors spread fast in a city where trials can start from one careless comment. Servants handle cooking, cleaning, laundry, and carrying supplies. You still manage the household budget. Vestals control property linked to the residence. You track spending, repair costs, and food stores. It feels like running a small business with divine branding. Your daily routine includes weaving ceremonial cloth. Rome expects holy women to work with wool. You produce items used in rituals and repairs for temple garments. It sounds peaceful. It becomes boring after the 100th hour. Nobody cares. The work continues. Nights are quiet. Guards stand outside. You hear distant noise from taverns and forums. Inside, the halls echo. You read, write, or sit with other Vestals. Friendships form, but loyalty is complicated. If one of you breaks a rule, the entire group suffers. Privileges few Roman men enjoyed. You reach the middle of your service, and suddenly Rome treats you like a legal cheat code. Most women in the city live under a male guardian called a tutor. You do not. The moment the Pontifex Maximus grabbed your hand during Captio, you became legally independent. You can own property, manage money, and sign contracts without asking a man for permission. That alone makes half the forum grind their teeth. You receive a stipend from the state. Records show regular public funding for the Vestals, plus gifts from wealthy families who want good favor with Vesta. Land, slaves, jewelry, and cash flow your way. Some former Vestals retire with serious wealth. One inscription notes a Vestal who owned estates outside Rome. Not bad for someone who started as a scared child in sandals. You can make a will. Roman women usually need approval for that. You do not. You control who gets your money, your property, and your slaves when you die or retire. People start being very polite. Your legal status also grants you escorts called lictors. They carry rods as symbols of authority. Only top officials have them. When you move through the streets, lictors clear your path. Men step aside. Even powerful magistrates yield space. This drives some politicians mad, but the rule stands. The state believes your body is tied to Rome's safety. Your testimony in court is special. You do not give the standard oath. Your word is considered pure by default. Judges trust you more than senators. That is both flattering and risky. If you support the wrong side in a legal dispute, enemies remember. Harming you is a capital crime. If someone injures or insults you in public, they can face death. Rome protects Vestals like rare artifacts. That makes walking through crowded streets less stressful. But it also turns you into a target for political attacks behind closed doors. You also gain funeral rites that shock outsiders. You may be buried within the city walls. Roman law normally bans burials inside Rome to avoid pollution. Vestals are the exception. The city claims you bring purity, not danger. The terrifying cost of failure. The fire looks peaceful, but it is a trap. Rome ties your entire worth to that flame. If it dies, everyone assumes the gods are angry. They do not blame bad weather or lazy guards. They blame you. Records mention Vestal Aemilia in the 3rd century BCE. The fire went out on her watch. She claimed a servant let it fail. The Pontifex Maximus did not care. She was beaten in secret. Lesson learned: never let the torch drop. Punishments happen privately. The public must never see a holy woman harmed. Rome loves the idea that Vestals stay pure, even when they are getting hit with rods in a dark room. The Pontifex Maximus performs the punishment. He covers his eyes or delivers the blows in darkness to preserve symbolic modesty. This rule is absurd, but Rome insists on it. Minor mistakes bring correction. Wrong words in a ritual. Improper clothing. Breaking rules about movement or speech. You face discipline fast. The order believes that small errors lead to divine chaos. You grow up terrified of slipping on a step. The worst crime is breaking the vow of chastity. Rome treats this not as personal failure, but as a national threat. The virginity of the Vestals is linked to the safety of the state. If you sleep with someone, people believe the gods will abandon Rome. Floods, earthquakes, enemy attacks, crop failure, you name it. All blamed on your private life. No pressure. The punishment is live burial. This is not rumor. It is recorded many times. A condemned Vestal is led to the Campus Celeratus, the field of wickedness, near the Colline Gate. She walks in silence, escorted by priests and officials. Her veil covers her face. The city watches like it is a grim public holiday. She enters a small underground chamber. It contains a couch, a lamp, a bit of food, and water. Rome gives these items to avoid directly killing her. The state claims she dies on her own. Everyone knows the truth. The chamber is sealed. She suffocates. Surviving politics, plots, and omens. You thought the worst danger was tripping on temple steps. Then you meet Roman politics. Now the fire looks friendly. Senators do not. When Rome hits a crisis, someone must take the blame. Flood, famine, military defeat, strange births, lightning strikes temples. Priests call these prodigies. The Senate orders rituals to fix them. Sometimes that means extra sacrifices. Sometimes that means a Vestal trial. You can guess which one gets more attention. You know the history. In 114 and 113 BCE, 3 Vestals were accused of breaking their vow: Aemilia, Licinia, and Marcia. At first, the regular priestly court acquitted some of them. The public screamed corruption. The Senate called in Lucius Cassius Longinus Revia, a stern special investigator. The result was brutal. More trials, convictions, executions. Moral panic looks the same in every century. Under Emperor Domitian in the 1st century CE, it got worse. He loved public virtue speeches and private cruelty. He put several Vestals on trial, including a chief Vestal named Cornelia. She claimed innocence. Ancient sources say she was still buried alive. Her reported words to Domitian were sharp. She said she was being killed not for unchastity, but because the emperor wanted it. Rome remembered that line. You see the pattern. When emperors feel insecure, Vestals become convenient targets. Accuse a sacred woman of impurity. Stage a dramatic trial. Announce that the gods are angry at sin, not at incompetent rulers. The crowd loves a clean story. You learn survival skills that have nothing to do with firewood. You stay polite with every political faction. You accept gifts, but not too many from one side. You avoid private meetings. You watch what you say in public. That joke about grain prices might show up later in a senator's angry speech. Priests track omens with obsession. Bad harvest. Eclipse. Statue falls. Earth tremor. Someone always whispers, "Have the Vestals stayed pure?" You do not control earthquakes, but you still get nervous every time the ground moves. Your safest posture is stillness. Calm voice. Careful words. Neutral face in public, even when senators are screaming at each other in the forum outside your door. Aging into power and control. Time moves fast when you live on a schedule. You started as a scared kid with a bowl of flour. Now you are one of the senior Vestals. Your hair has more pins than patience. Your job has shifted from doing everything to making sure everything gets done. The 30-year service plan is simple. 10 years learning, 10 years doing, 10 years teaching. You are now deep in the teaching phase. You no longer stand every cold night by the fire. Younger Vestals do that. You supervise. You check their work, correct their posture, and fix their wording before they embarrass Rome in front of the gods. You manage the rotation for flame duty, cleaning, festival prep, and errands. It feels like running a very tense shift schedule in a very holy factory. You decide who sleeps when, who stands where, and who gets the joy of dealing with the Pontifex Maximus at sunrise. Rank finally means something. Your authority reaches beyond the temple walls. When new girls arrive, their entire education goes through you and the other seniors. You teach them how to walk in public without tripping, how to keep calm when senators stare, how to stay silent when rumors swirl about politics, war, or scandals. You are not just a priestess. You are a survival coach. You also become the memory of the house. You remember past omens, past punishments, which emperors were dangerous, which senators are dramatic, and which priests are useful. That knowledge is not written in any official record. It stays in conversations by the courtyard pool. After evening rituals, when the younger Vestals ask quiet questions they will never repeat in public. Your body starts to feel the years. Knees complain on stone stairs. Long ceremonies weigh on your back and neck. You still wear the same symbolic hairstyle, but hairpins dig deeper. Rome has no retirement plan for pain. You get through rituals with experience and stubbornness. You have lived most of your life under these rules. At this point, the vow feels less like a promise and more like your basic operating system. You are no longer just serving the cult of Vesta. You are its backbone, its memory, and, if things go wrong, its last defense. Freedom, marriage, and quiet power. 30 years end with a simple fact. Your contract is done. You served Vesta for 3 decades. You kept the fire alive. You survived politics, omens, and inspections. Now the law says you can walk away. No ritual chains. No 1 more year extension. You are free. On paper, the Pontifex Maximus releases you from your vow. This is a formal act. You are no longer bound to chastity by the state. Your legal status stays strong. You keep your property, your right to make contracts, your ability to manage money. Unlike most Roman women, you do not slide back under a male guardian. That door stays shut. Now everyone brings up marriage. Romans love theories about retired Vestals. Some sources claim many refuse to marry. Others mention men begging to marry them because they are seen as lucky and pure. One tradition says a retired Vestal named Licinia married a consul. Another report claims suitors line up because your wealth and status look very attractive. You get to decide. That is the strange part. You can marry a senator or a rich equestrian. You can also stay single and manage your estates. In a society where most women's lives are mapped by fathers and husbands, this level of choice feels unreal. If you choose not to marry, you can live quietly in a house of your own or remain near the Atrium Vestae as an informal elder. You do not run rituals anymore, but people still bow when you pass. Once a sacred symbol, always a sacred symbol. You carry memories no one else has. Which emperor lied during sacrifices? Which general trembled before battle? Which priest panicked when thunder hit the wrong hill? None of this appears in marble inscriptions. It lives in your head. Your life started as a child, taken from a crowd. It ends with something rare in ancient Rome. You are a woman with money, legal power, and survival stories. The fire belongs to younger hands now, but part of Rome's spine still walks around inside your skin. Behind the white walls of Babylon's temples, something powerful happened every day. Secret rituals, royal humiliation ceremonies, and sky-watching sessions that decided whether the king lived or died. You were a teenager helping run all of it. No one outside those walls knew the full story, but you did. For now, you sleep on a mat in a busy family room and share chores with cousins. You do not know it yet, but your path is already bending toward the temple. Childhood in crowded Babylon streets. You take your first breath in Babylon, right by the Euphrates, in a house made of sun-baked mud brick that cracks in the heat every summer. The city is loud from the start. Traders shout prices, donkeys complain about everything, and somewhere a temple singer is already warming up for the morning hymn to Marduk. Your family is not ordinary. Your father has land and business ties with the palace and the temple. That means silver in the house and, more important, status. It also means your life is never going to be simple. From the time you can walk, adults tell you that the gods are always watching. Not in a vague way, literally watching. Their eyes are carved into every gate, every statue, every amulet hanging over your bed. As a small child, your world is a tight maze of courtyards and flat roofs. You help grind grain, you carry water, you learn how to keep your sandals from sinking in the mud after the river floods. You hear adults talk about harvest tallies, barley rations, and temple debts. You do not understand the numbers yet, but you learn very early that tablets covered in wedge marks decide everything. Religion is not a special event. It is the background program of your whole day. Before meals, your mother murmurs a short prayer. Before a journey, someone burns a pinch of incense. At night, the household god figures get a tiny share of food and drink. You grow up with the firm idea that if the gods are happy, your roof stays on, and your brothers do not get sick. The temple complex sits on higher ground, always in view. You see its whitewashed walls and tall ziggurat from your rooftop. On festival days, you rush to the street edge as the procession passes. Priests in special garments, musicians with drums and lyres, guards clearing a path, and at the center a statue of the god hidden in a covered shrine. You watch the line pass and feel something very simple and very dangerous for a child in Babylon. You want to be inside those walls, not just watching from the dust. Chosen young to serve the goddess. One morning, your father does not go to the fields or the market. He goes to the Scribes. That is always a sign of trouble or power. In your case, it is both. He commissions a clay tablet that will decide your whole future. On it, he records a vow. His daughter will serve the goddess. Families in Babylon do not do this on a whim. Dedicating a daughter to temple service is a public move. It ties your house to a major god and to serious institutions. In return, the family gains status, protection, and sometimes better access to temple loans and land. The gods are holy. They are also excellent networking tools. You are somewhere between 8 and 12, old enough to follow instructions. Young enough that no one bothers to ask your opinion. Relatives gather. Your mother adjusts your hair and clothing. You get ornaments that are not part of normal chores. You stand straight while a scribe reads the vow out loud. Your name, your father's name, the name of the goddess, the duties, the rules, all baked into clay. Your legal status shifts. You are no longer just a daughter in a household. You become a consecrated woman, recorded in the same writing system that tracks taxes and royal orders. Depending on your exact rank, you may lose the right to a normal marriage. In some lines, you can still own property and receive income. In others, your inheritance is locked into the temple. The law codes and contracts keep score. The ceremony is not sentimental. There is no soft speech about finding yourself. There are offerings, spoken formulas, and precise gestures. When it ends, you walk out with a new role and a quiet shock. Yesterday, you were a child who watched processions from the street. Today, you are marked for the inner world behind those walls. Training inside, the temple school. Your world shrinks and expands on the same day. You leave the family house and move into the temple quarter, close to the great courtyard and its storage rooms, shrines, and offices. The streets here are quieter, but the rules are louder. Every step near the sacred area has a list of, do this, never do that. Temple life starts early. You wake before sunrise to wash, not a quick splash. A set routine with clean water, specific order, and no shortcuts. Purity here is not about feelings. It is about staying fit to stand near a god's statue without causing cosmic offense. Your first real lessons are not mystical. They are practical and boring, which means they matter. You learn the standard prayers line by line. Senior women drill you on the names of the gods, their titles, and their favorite offerings. Marduk, Ishtar, Shamash, Nabu, Gula, each with a fixed list of praises and jobs. Mix them up in public and you will never hear the end of it. Then come the tablets. Clay, reed stylus, and posture that makes your back hate you. You copy simple signs, wedges for numbers, signs for barley, oil, sheep, and basic verbs. You do not train as a full professional scribe, but you need enough skill to read key ritual lines and recognize your own name in legal texts. When a tablet says you owe offerings, you want to be sure. Music drills fill the afternoons. You practice pitch, rhythm, and breathing because the gods do not tolerate lazy hymns. Temple singers and musicians correct every slip. You learn how to hold notes over the beat of drums and the pluck of lyres. A missed cue in a public ritual is not cute. It is a sign of disrespect. You also learn body language, where to stand, how to bow, when to raise your hands, when to keep your eyes low. The god statue never speaks, but the choreography around it is strict. Day by day, the temple strips away your old habits and replaces them with ritual muscle memory. At night, when you lie down on your mat in a shared chamber, you realize something simple and slightly terrifying. Your mistakes no longer embarrass just you, they embarrass a god. First steps in daily rituals. Your first official duty feels small. You carry a lamp, that is it. You hold a clay lamp with sesame oil and a short wick, but in this temple, that lamp is not a decoration. It signals that the god is awake. If it goes out, people panic. The universe does not collapse, but the blame lands on the trainee with shaky hands. The day begins before the sun clears the ziggurat. Senior priestesses unlock the inner doors, recite short lines, and check the statue's clothing and jewelry. The statue is not a symbol. In Babylon, the god is believed to live in it. That means you help dress a divine guest every morning. Fresh linen, polished gold, and a quick wipe to remove dust. You are scared to breathe, much less sneeze. Then come the offerings. Bread, dates, beer, and sometimes meat if the temple has enough animals that week. You help lay the trays on clean stands, while another priestess chants. The food does not vanish. No one expects it to. After the ritual, the staff gets rations based on ranks. You learn fast that a well-stocked storeroom means fewer grumpy workers. Fire control becomes a new skill. You learn to keep incense burning at a steady rate. Too little and the room smells like sweat. Too much and the smoke makes everyone cough during the prayers. The schedule runs like a relentless drum. Morning ritual, midday offering, evening closing, each with spoken lines, bows, and gestures. No skipping, no freestyle. The temple follows rules written long before you were born. You develop a strange skill set. You can carry hot incense pots without burning your hands. You can chant while walking. You can spot an uneven offering tray from across the room. None of this impresses your old friends outside the walls. Inside, it keeps you employed and alive. By the end of the week, you understand a harsh truth. Serving a god looks grand from the street. Up close, it feels like the world's most intense housekeeping job. Serving during great festivals. Your quiet routine explodes during the Akitu festival. It is the New Year celebration in Babylon, usually held around the spring equinox. For 12 intense days, the temple becomes the city's beating heart. Crowds pack the streets. Merchants triple prices. Officials act holy for once. Every guild wants to be seen supporting the god Marduk. Your job shifts from careful lamp duty to high-stakes public performance. The god statue leaves the inner shrine and travels through the city in a covered shrine carried by priests and guards. The people cheer, cry, or panic, depending on the year. If the king fails to show proper respect in the rituals, everyone believes disaster will follow. Floods, famine, invasion. No pressure. You stand in formation with other priestesses near the temple gate. You hold ritual objects. You chant short lines when cued by senior clergy. You keep your face calm while guards shove people out of the way. You learn that holiness needs security staff with sharp weapons. The king arrives in full regalia. He enters the temple and must kneel before Marduk's statue. The high priest slaps him, hard. The blow is meant to show the king's humility before the god. If the king tears up, the crowd believes the god approves. If he stays dry-eyed, people whisper, "You do not laugh." Not out loud. Inside the temple, you help prepare the ritual rooms. Offerings multiply. More bread, more beer, more incense. You assist with sacred vessels and make sure everything is placed in the correct order. One misplaced cup during the New Year ritual could start a rumor that the goddess is angry. Rumors travel faster than horses. Some parts remain restricted. The sacred marriage ritual tied to the goddess Ishtar and her consort may be performed by high-ranking clergy and royalty. You only hear muffled chants and see the aftermath in the form of extra offerings and smug expressions. You keep working. Managing temple wealth and workers. Your duties jump from candles to cash flow. Babylonian temples are not only holy sites, they are economic giants. Some control fields, herds, workshops, and loans. By the time you turn 14 or 15, you help manage resources that feed hundreds. No pressure. First stop every morning is the storeroom. Clay jars full of grain, oil, and dates line the walls. Scribes check deliveries from temple lands. One tablet might list 50 sheep sent from a village near Kish. Another records 30 liters of sesame oil pressed in a temple workshop. You learn fast that numbers are sacred when they involve food. If a jar is short, workers complain and priests panic. You help supervise ration distribution. Workers get monthly shares. A brewer might get 10 liters of barley. A weaver might get wool bundles and a portion of beer. You hand out tokens or confirm marks on tablets. People do not argue with the gods, but they argue about rations, loudly. Temple property is serious business. Some priestesses can own land. You can rent fields to farmers and collect the harvest share as income. Your name appears on legal tablets that record contracts. You see your identity pressed into clay next to officials and male landowners. It feels powerful and slightly dangerous. Losing a tablet means losing proof. The temple also loans silver. Interest rates vary, but the temple never forgets a debt. If someone defaults, the temple claims land or animals. You witness tense negotiations. A farmer offers 6 goats instead of silver. A scribe checks the law code. The temple accepts, but raises requirements next season. The gods are generous only on festival days. You oversee workshops. Weavers produce fine cloth for rituals. Bakers make daily bread for offerings and staff rations. Brewers handle huge vats of beer. You coordinate schedules and check quality. One batch of sour beer can ruin morale and spark gossip about divine displeasure. You also monitor offerings from private citizens. People bring clay figurines, metal jewelry, or animals. You record the value and direct the items to storage or sacrifice. Some donations come from fear, others from thanks. You learn that devotion and bribery look the same when written in cuneiform. Healing, omens, and daily petitioners. Your quiet storeroom duties get interrupted by a line of worried citizens. They arrive before sunrise, clutching offerings and looking desperate. A man says his wife has fever. A woman thinks her neighbor cursed her goats. A merchant had a nightmare about a broken bridge and now refuses to cross the river. In Babylon, every problem has a divine angle. Lucky you help handle it. The temple works with 2 specialist groups. The Ashipu handle exorcisms and ritual cures. The Asu handle practical medicine like herbs and bandages. You assist both, which means you now know way too much about rashes and curses. A tablet from around 650 BCE lists over 200 medical prescriptions. Honey, dates, beer, and plant mixes. Some work, some taste like punishment. Petitioners bring offerings. A small clay bowl for strength, a bronze pin for protection, a clay tablet with a prayer asking Gula, the goddess of healing, to stop a disease. You record the item's value and the petitioner's name. No offering, no ritual. The gods do not run a charity. You take part in ritual washing. Holy water poured from special vessels, collected from a clean source and blessed with spoken lines. You sprinkle it over a sick person or a symbolic clay figure. The Ashipu chant diagnostic formulas. They do not guess. They follow long lists that connect symptoms to causes. Fever may mean a demon, a curse, or a bad wind. The cure depends on the category. Sometimes a person seeks help for guilt. They think they angered a god by breaking a vow or skipping an offering. You present bread and incense on their behalf and speak short prayers. You do not ask for details. Confession is not your job. Keeping the ritual clean is. Dream interpretation becomes part of your routine. People report dreams about floods, snakes, or collapsing houses. You assist while a trained interpreter checks omen tablets. One dream about a falling star could mean danger for the king. If the dream involves you, You stay silent. No one needs that drama. Reading the sky for kings. Your daily chores take a strange turn. Instead of counting grain or washing ritual bowls, you climb narrow stairs to the roof. You are not sightseeing, you are helping watch the sky. Babylonian temples serve as observatories. The roof crew is full of specialists who record every odd event in the heavens. Stars, planets, clouds, colors, and anything that looks suspicious. The senior astrologer reads from Omen tablets. The big collection is called Enuma Anu Enlil. It holds thousands of signs. If a planet shines too bright, if the moon turns red, if Jupiter moves the wrong way, someone writes it down and links it to a known result. A lunar eclipse on the 14th day of a month? That might mean danger for the king. A strange halo around the sun? That could hint at famine. You assist by holding lamps, copying short notes, and trying not to fall asleep. Whenever a bad omen points at the king, the temple reacts fast. Special rituals begin. Extra offerings, extra chants. Sometimes a substitute king ritual is prepared. Yes, you heard that right. If the omen says the real king might die, a temporary stand-in takes the danger. A man is crowned, treated like royalty, and then removed once the threat passes. The real king hides and waits. You are not invited to the final step. You can guess why. You help prepare ritual items. Clean bowls, extra incense, and cloth to cover statues. You hear tense whispers among officials. If the omen warns of invasion, the palace panics. If it warns of plague, the temple fields get more attention. You learn that the sky controls politics more than anyone admits. War, hunger, and new kings. You think the temple is stable. The gods stay put. The schedule never changes. Then the troops show up. News hits first through traders. An enemy army is moving. Maybe Assyria in one century, maybe Elam in another, maybe some rebel from a nearby city who thinks he is important. The names change. The pattern does not. First sign inside the temple is silence. Fewer people bring offerings. Farmers hold back grain in case the roads close. The storerooms you once saw as endless start to look thin. Scribes update ration tablets with less generous numbers. Workers pretend not to notice, then start complaining louder. The city walls fill with guards. You are not a soldier. You are a logistics problem. The temple must keep basic rituals going, even if the army is outside the gate. That means you stretch supplies. Smaller bread loaves for offerings. Less beer in each cup. You hope the gods appreciate portion control. If the siege lasts, hunger creeps in. Animals in temple herds are slaughtered faster. Grain is milled down to the last kernel. Petitioners now ask less for love and more for survival. They want protection from arrows, disease, and starvation. You assist in emergency rituals. Extra prayers to Ishtar for victory. Extra offerings to Shamash for justice. Deep down, everyone knows the invading army does not care about justice lists on clay. Then, the city falls. Maybe the gates open after a deal. Maybe the wall is breached. Either way, soldiers enter. Statues can be looted. Some conquerors drag gods out of their temples and cart them off as trophies. That is a political message. Our god beat your god. You help move sacred items to inner rooms and hope the new rulers like your deity's style. Survival now means adaptation. The new king issues decrees. The temple must add his name to prayers and adjust offerings to match his favorite gods. Old tablets stay in storage, but new ones praise the fresh regime. You keep your face neutral while reading lines that thank the latest conqueror for his mercy. You saw the streets. Mercy is a flexible word. Elder priestess and final duties. Time does not care about your sacred schedule. Your knees start to complain every time you climb temple stairs. Younger priestesses rush past you with fresh energy and terrible posture. You stop carrying heavy incense burners. You start giving orders. That part feels great. Your role shifts to teaching. New girls arrive, usually between 8 and 12, just as you once did. They cry on the first night. You hand them a linen cloth and tell them to keep quiet because the goddess does not accept tears as offerings. You train them in prayers, posture, and tablet reading. You correct every mistake. Getting a god's title wrong in public does not end well for anyone. You become part of temple leadership. Your name appears on contracts involving land rentals, silver loans, and property disputes. Records from cities like Sippar and show senior priestesses managing estates well into old age. Some own fields that yield barley shares every harvest. Your family visits more often now that you control income. Funny how that works. You attend council meetings with temple officials. Scribes present tablets listing debts and deliveries. You decide whether a tenant can keep his field after a poor harvest. Mercy is rare. The temple still wants results. You also help negotiate with palace officials. Kings change, but paperwork never dies. Your ritual tasks shrink. but you still perform key lines during major ceremonies. The public trusts your voice. Years of practice built authority. When you lift your hands in prayer, people believe the goddess listens. You know the truth. The goddess listens when the offerings are in order. Your body slows. You stop taking part in long night watches on the roof. Younger staff handle the stairs and sleepless hours. You advise from the courtyard and pretend you do not miss the view. Eventually, your death becomes another event on the temple calendar. Your burial follows elite customs, a proper grave, offerings, and tablets noting your status. Family members maintain small rites in your honor. Some temples keep records of past priestesses to prove long-standing service. You become part of that list. You wake up one day, and boom. You're the spiritual CEO of Athens. No training manual, no HR, no lunch break. You handle festivals, public scandals, and legal crises while wearing layers of fabric in 40 degrees Celsius heat. Meanwhile, men in togas act shocked that you have authority. Born into a sacred lineage, you arrive in Athens in the late 400s BCE, and the house reacts like it just won a prize. Your family, the Etioboutidai, is famous. Old money, old power, and old temple duties. People hear your family name and think of Athena's main shrine on the Acropolis. They also think of political deals whispered behind marble columns. You are born into a job you never applied for. As a girl, you do not get the standard Athenian education. No speeches, no wrestling, no long talks about justice in the agora. Your teachers are women inside the home. They teach you how to weave, run a household, manage servants, and keep the storeroom full. For most girls, that is the full plan. Marriage, children, silence in public. End of story. Your story has a twist. Older relatives study you like inspectors. You are not just a child. You are a potential future priestess. When the women gather, they talk about marriages and dowries. But they also whisper about rituals, festivals, and which cousin once carried a sacred basket in a big parade. You hear names of gods more often than names of boys your age. The most important person on the Acropolis is not a general or a speaker. It is a priestess, standing near Athena's altar, calm and respected. Men listen to her. That sticks in your mind. By 10, you know the smell of burnt bones on an altar. You know the flash of a blade used in sacrifices. You hear the ritual cry women shout when the omen looks good. You watch young girls, some only 7, chosen to help start weaving Athena's sacred robe. They get to live on the Acropolis for a year. You want that badge of honor more than any doll? Chosen by sacred lottery. You reach young adulthood, maybe around 18, and the pressure builds. Marriage talks start first. Your family needs you married, because only married women can serve as priestesses in major cults. A husband means stability, property links, and legal status. You meet a man your relatives approve of, and before you know it, you are part of a new household. Your wedding is loud, crowded, and full of wine you barely get to taste. You now have the one credential the city cares about. You are a wife. Soon after, the real moment arrives. The city announces that the office of High Priestess of Athena Polias needs a new holder. This is not a private family choice. This is a civic process run by officials. Your name goes onto a list with other eligible women from the Etioboutidai. You do not campaign, you do not give speeches, you wait. The day of the lottery feels like a trial. Officials gather, likely near the Acropolis or another civic space, and the public watches. Men run the procedure. Women stand quietly, pretending they are fine. A device is used to draw lots. One slip will decide who controls the city's most sacred duties for life. Your heart races, but your face stays calm. Women are trained to look calm. Your name comes out. The crowd reacts. Some cheer because your family has a strong record of service. Others sigh because power always seems to circle back to the same clans. You step forward. You now hold a public religious office equal in visibility to many male magistrates. You cannot vote or speak in the assembly, but your role affects every major civic ritual tied to Athena. That includes sacrifices before wars, new laws, and major festivals. Officials confirm your status. You receive authority over sacred objects, temple access, and festival coordination. You gain lifetime tenure. No term limits. The only exit is death or extreme misconduct, and Athens does not like removing priestesses. The city wants stability in its rituals. You return home with your new title, and the mood shifts. Relatives treat you with caution and awe. Your husband looks proud and a little scared. You went from promising woman to public religious powerhouse in one draw. Purification and ritual preparation. The city does not hand you the keys to Athena's temple and say, good luck. First, you must prove you are clean, not just bathed, ritually clean. That means days of controlled behavior. You avoid childbirth, death, sex, certain foods, and anything seen as polluting. One wrong visit or one unlucky event can delay your first ceremony. Athens takes purity rules very seriously. A bad omen can spark riots, or at least angry old men shouting at officials. Your first major step is a ritual bath. You wash in water drawn at a sacred source. It is cold, and you are watched to make sure the rules are followed. This is not a spa day. It marks a shift. You stop being a normal married woman and become a public sacred figure. After the bath, attendants dress you in special garments. Fine cloth, long folds, and a veil that signals status. You also receive jewelry or ribbons linked to the cult. Every piece has meaning. None of it is optional. Then come the rules. You get a briefing from temple staff. You learn what you can touch and what you must avoid. You must stay away from funerals. You must limit contact with blood outside of sacrifice. You must avoid certain rooms when you are bleeding. Yes, they track that. You also receive responsibility over sacred objects. That includes the keys to the temple, control of votive gifts, and access to storerooms that hold offerings and valuables. Losing a key would not just be embarrassing. It could trigger a legal case or public outrage. People leave expensive dedications to Athena, and someone has to protect them. That someone is you. You start learning prayers and ritual lines. You must speak them clearly and correctly. One misplaced word can ruin a ceremony. No pressure. Assistants practice with you, drilling each phrase until your voice sounds steady. You also rehearse movements, where to stand, how to pour, how to handle the knife during sacrifice oversight. Precision equals respect. Daily duties on the Acropolis. Your workday starts before most people finish yawning. You climb the Acropolis, skirt swishing, guards nodding, and you head straight for Athena's temple. First job, unlock the doors. The keys are heavy and loud. Good. They remind everyone that you control access to the goddess of the city, not the generals. You. Inside, you check the basics. Is the altar clean? Are yesterday's ashes cleared? Are the lamps filled? Is any idiot's half-rotten offering rotting a little extra today? If something looks off, a temple servant fixes it fast. You do not scrub floors. You direct people who scrub floors. Next, you deal with offerings. A wealthy man brings a bronze statue. A poorer woman brings a small clay figure or a garland. Both count. You approve where things go. Some objects stand in view. Others go into storerooms, carefully listed. The temple has more valuables than some private houses. You are part priestess, part museum director, part security system. Then come the private sacrifices. Families arrive with animals, usually sheep or goats, and nerves. They want a good sign for a marriage, a voyage, a court case. You guide the process. Sprinkle barley. Cut a few hairs from the animal. Watch the first drops of blood. If the signs look bad, you do not fake it. People came for the truth, not comfort. You also handle questions. People ask if a certain vow is allowed, if a ritual is valid, if they offended the goddess by forgetting a step. You explain the rules. Clear, firm, no sugar. Your job is to defend correct practice, not their feelings. Between rituals, you check accounts. The temple receives parts of sacrificed animals, oil, grain, and sometimes money. Someone has to track it and make sure nobody loses a nice piece of meat on the way home. You supervise scribes and servants who handle the numbers. If the records look wrong, you call it out. Leading the Great Panathenaia. Your first Great Panathenaia hits like a storm. It happens every 4 years, in late July or early August, and the whole city of roughly 250,000 people feels it. Smaller festival every year, big one every 4. You get the big one. Lucky you! The festival honors Athena's birthday, and Athens treats it like a mix of national parade, Olympics, and giant barbecue. Weeks before the date, work starts. Women weave the sacred peplos, a long robe for Athena's ancient wooden statue. The weaving team includes skilled ergastani and young girls called eraphoroi. They work for months, adding scenes of Athena beating giants in battle. Your job is to oversee the ritual parts. You check progress. You approve materials. You make sure nobody decides to add sparkles or new patterns without permission. Athens likes tradition. Change the stitch. Start a riot. The big day begins before dawn. You stand at the start of the procession near the Dipylon Gate. Thousands join. Soldiers in armor, metics carrying trays, musicians with pipes, elders on carts, and young women called kanaphoroi holding sacred baskets. They walk in front. They symbolize purity and status. Their families flex that status like it is the latest trend. You lead the religious corps. Your voice sets the tone. You guide the slow climb up to the Acropolis. Heat bounces off stone. Sweat runs down necks. People still pretend to look graceful. The crowd watches from balconies and roofs. This is the moment. When the peplos is placed on the statue, the crowd cheers. For one day, you stand at the center of the city's identity. You are not background staff. You are the authority. Athens runs on ritual, and today, you run Athens. Sacred law and civic influence. Your middle years in office bring a new twist. You are no longer just the woman who runs sacrifices and locks doors. You are now the person officials fear when they want to push a law through fast. Athens has around 6,000 citizens who can vote, and they love voting. They pass laws, repeal laws, debate war strategies, and hold trials for anything from murder to grain fraud. Every major decision needs proper ritual. If the sacrifice looks wrong or the omen fails, the plan stalls. Guess who controls the ritual? You. A general wants to sail to Sicily. He needs a sacrifice at Athena's altar. You oversee it. The liver looks odd, the smoke blows the wrong way, the cry is weak. The crowd starts buzzing. You raise a hand. You say the signs are not favorable. The assembly freezes. Nobody wants to blame you. They blame the general, the weather, or the gods. You did not vote, but you changed the outcome. Officials start visiting you more often. They ask if a proposed festival date breaks sacred rules. They ask if a new temple plan violates old boundaries. They ask if a treaty oath can be sworn in your sanctuary. Some come with gifts, hoping for friendly rulings. You turn them away. Accepting bribes could bring legal charges and public shame. Athens loves a good scandal, and you do not want your name shouted in the courts. You also officiate oath ceremonies. Citizens swear to tell the truth in trials. Soldiers swear loyalty before campaigns. Ambassadors swear peace terms. Breaking an oath sworn in Athena's temple is more than rude. It risks divine punishment. People remember that, even if they forget their taxes. Sometimes you must argue with male officials. A council member wants to sacrifice at the wrong time of day. You say no. He argues. You quote, "Sacred law." He backs down because nobody wants to be the fool who angers the goddess. The council controls money and ships, but you control ritual correctness. Ritual response to crisis. Then Athens hits a wall. War breaks out with Sparta, and the city pulls tens of thousands of people inside its long walls. Farmers, families, animals, everyone packed into tight spaces. The streets smell like sweat and fear. You still climb the Acropolis each morning, but now you see tents and makeshift shelters all the way to the harbor. The city looks rich on paper and miserable in person. The first panic comes from the war itself. Before major battles, generals line up for sacrifices. They want a clear sign. Good smoke, good liver, good mood. You oversee the rituals. One general arrives shaking because his fleet is about to sail south. You watch the smoke blow straight back into his face. The crowd groans. You say the omen is weak. He sails anyway. Days later, news arrives that dozens of ships burned, men drowned, and families lost sons. People remember what you said. Nobody laughs at omens now. Then the real horror arrives. A plague hits the city around 430 BCE. Bodies pile up. Some people die within a week. Fever, rash, vomiting, death. Estimates say up to 1/4 of the population falls. Even Pericles, the top leader, dies. Families drag corpses to pyres. Funeral rules crumble. Panic spreads faster than the sickness. You cannot heal anyone, but you can give people one thing: ritual structure. You organize extra sacrifices to Apollo, the god linked to plagues. You lead processions, asking the gods to show mercy. The crowds look like ghosts. People pack the sanctuary seeking answers. They want signs, dreams, anything. You refuse to invent good news. You tell them the rites will continue, the gods will watch, and the city must keep order. Your voice becomes the calm center in a storm of rumors and grief. Food shortages follow. Sparta blocks grain routes. Bread prices rise. You oversee Thanksgiving sacrifices when grain shipments arrive from allies. When they do not, you hear the growl of angry stomachs echo in the courtyard. Status and public privileges. Your crisis work pays off in a very Athenian way. Public honors. Athens loves handing out awards almost as much as it loves lawsuits. One decree after another lists people who served the city well, and now your name appears on those stone slabs. Your name, a woman's name, carved in stone for everyone to read. Most women stay invisible in records. You break that rule. Your job also comes with perks. Real perks. You get front row seating at the theater, right near the officials. The best spot is called prohedria. While other women sit far away or stay home, you sit close enough to hear every joke and see every actor sweat under the masks. People glance at you to see if you laugh at the wrong time. Awkward, but also powerful. You often wear a crown during ceremonies, a golden wreath, shining in the sun, marking your status. No athletic race required. You get it for leading rituals that keep the gods happy. Crowns show honor, and Athenians love showing honor when it makes them look good. You also receive portions of sacrificed animals. The best cuts, like the thigh bones and certain organs, go to Athena, but you get a share too. Meat matters in a city where many people rarely taste it. Festival season turns you into the most popular dinner guest in town, even if nobody invites you for casual gossip. Some priestesses gain control over certain properties, or receive money for temple maintenance. You help manage temple funds and offerings. That means you handle resources that rival rich households. Theft or misuse could lead to trials, so you run a tight system. Then comes the biggest privilege: public voice without public punishment. You cannot vote, but when you speak about ritual law, men listen. Council members stop talking. Generals stop boasting. Your words shape the city's actions, training future sacred women. Time moves fast. You wake up one morning and realize you are no longer the young priestess everyone whispers about. Now you are the one they point to when a girl forgets how to hold a basket without dropping barley on her own feet. You have become the trainer, the coach, the strict aunt who knows every ritual rule by heart. Your first group includes 2 Araphoroi, girls around 7 to 11. They look tiny in their fine robes, but they carry big responsibility. They help start the weaving of Athena's sacred robe each year. They also take part in a secret nighttime ritual that nobody explains in detail. You know the steps, you guide them, no joking allowed. One mistake in a secret rite can spark rumors that last for decades. Athens loves gossip almost as much as it loves war. You also train Kanaphoroi, teenage girls chosen to lead processions with baskets of sacred items. These baskets may hold knives, barley, ribbons, or other ritual pieces. The girls must walk slowly, look pure, and not faint in the heat. You teach them posture, pace, and how to ignore creepy old men staring from the crowd. Your training style is simple: clear rules, sharp corrections, praise only when earned. One girl slouches. You tap her shoulder. One girl tries to add extra flair. You shut it down. Rituals are not fashion shows. Tradition wins every time. You also coordinate with other priestesses. The Sanctuary of Athena is not the only show in town. The Priestess of Athena Nike handles victory offerings. The Priestess of Poseidon Erechtheus controls shared spaces on the Acropolis. During major festivals, you all must work together. Timing matters. One late procession can ruin a sacrifice schedule and create chaos. You run rehearsals in the temple courtyard. Girls practice lighting torches, carrying vessels, and standing in lines without scratching their noses. Servants watch. Mothers worry. You keep a calm face. Inside, you feel like you are herding sparrows. Some girls enter training shy and quiet. After a year under your guidance, they walk with confidence. They learn how to stand in public, how to speak in ritual, and how to handle tools without trembling. You know that these skills shape their futures. A girl who carries a sacred basket today may run her household with authority tomorrow. Athens thinks it chooses its priestesses. You know the truth. You train them. Succession after lifetime service. Years pass, and your joints start complaining before dawn prayers. You still climb the Acropolis, but the steps feel taller. Servants move faster. Young priestesses stare at you with a mix of awe and worry. They know what your slower pace means. Athens does not fire priestesses. Time does the job. Rumors begin quietly. Older women in your family whisper during festivals. Officials ask casual questions about health. A scribe asks for updated records, just in case. You smile. Everyone knows where this is going, but nobody says it out loud. Your office is for life, and life has limits. Then the formal process starts. The city prepares for a new high priestess of Athena, Polias. This is not a private handoff. A civic announcement goes out. Eligible married women from the Idiobutidai family are listed. Families argue behind closed doors. Every name on that list carries hopes, status, and political weight. The lottery happens again. Officials gather, citizens watch, and a device draws one name. The tension hits you harder this time. You know what the title costs. The chosen woman steps forward, eyes wide, head high, pretending she understands the workload ahead. She does not. Nobody does on day one. Your final duties begin. You unlock the temple one last time. You hand over the heavy keys, the same keys you carried for decades. You show the new priestess the storerooms. You explain which offerings need daily care and which donors complain the most. You reveal the location of important documents and the correct order of festival preparations. This transfer is not emotional, It is practical. Rituals must continue without a missing step. Temple staff adjust fast. Servants shift their attention. Scribes change the name on records. The city updates decrees. One line changes everything. During the priestessship of now belongs to someone else. Your role shrinks overnight. You no longer stand at the front of processions. You do not approve sacrifices or rule on sacred law. You watch from the side while the new priestess learns to hold power without dropping it. In this city, even sacred power has a replacement plan. You are an old woman from a town nobody powerful was ever born in. And tomorrow morning, the richest kings in the known world will travel for weeks, slaughter their best livestock, and hand over a small fortune just to hear what you mumble from a stool. You have no army, no crown, and not one drop of royal blood. What you do have is a three-legged seat, a cave full of sweet-smelling air, and the absolute conviction of an entire civilization that when you open your mouth, a god is doing the talking. You weren't born special. Let's clear up the job requirements, because they are not what you'd expect. You did not become the Oracle of Delphi by being a princess. Delphi did not care who your father was. You could be the daughter of a farmer, a fisherman, or a man whose entire career was shoveling goat manure, and you could still grow up to be the single most consulted woman on the planet. The rules were simple. You had to be from Delphi. You had to live a sober and respectable life, and you had to be willing to give up sex indefinitely. That last part was the deal breaker, because the whole system ran on the belief that the god Apollo was, in a spiritual sense, your one and only companion. The Greeks were famously fuzzy on exactly how spiritual that was. And no, you did not have to be a lifelong virgin to qualify. Plenty of scholars think you could have been married, raised children, buried a husband, and only then taken up the role and the vow that came with it. The point was never your past. It was that once you put on the robes, you belonged to Apollo and nobody else. In a world obsessed with bloodlines and inheritance, your power came from the exact opposite of all that. You gave everything up, and in return you got to tell emperors what to do. In the beginning, they wanted the Pythia young and virginal. Then came the scandal that changed everything. According to the historian Diodorus Siculus, a man from Thessaly named Echecrates showed up, became obsessed with a beautiful young Pythia, and assaulted her. The Delphians responded with a new policy. From then on, the oracle had to be a woman over 50. But here is the detail that breaks your brain. They still dressed her in the costume of a young maiden. So your standard work uniform, as a woman past 50, was the outfit of a teenage bride, because the symbolism of youthful purity mattered more to everyone than the actual woman wearing it. This was ancient Greek religion, where the symbolism was always doing the heavy lifting, and you would not be working alone. During the boom years, when half the Mediterranean wanted answers, Delphi kept as many as 3 women in the role at once. 2 would take turns on the sacred stool, and a third stayed on standby in case one of them tapped out. Being the voice of a god, it turns out, was demanding enough to need a substitute on the bench, the navel of the world. Your workplace had the single best address in Greek mythology. Delphi clung to the slopes of Mount Parnassus, and the Greeks didn't just think it was beautiful, they thought it was the exact center of the earth. The myth says Zeus released 2 eagles from opposite ends of the world and let them fly toward each other to find the middle. They met directly above Delphi, and the spot was marked with a carved stone called the omphalos, which literally means navel. Your office was, by official mythological decree, the belly button of the universe. The sanctuary around you was a walled complex, roughly 190 meters long, packed with treasuries, statues, a theater, and a winding sacred way leading up to the Temple of Apollo. Cities competed to build the most impressive little treasury building here, which was basically ancient product placement, a flashy way to show off your wealth and stay on the god's good side. The temple itself burned down and got rebuilt more than once, because that is just what Greek temples did. The famous ruins you can still visit today went up in the 4th century BC, and the origin story behind your job title is genuinely brutal. Before Apollo owned Delphi, the site belonged to the earth goddess Gaia and was guarded by a giant serpent named Python. Apollo arrived, killed the monster with his arrows, and took the place over. That is where your name comes from. Pythia and Pythian both come from Python, and quite possibly from the Greek word meaning to rot, because the serpent's corpse was left to decay on the spot. You are, technically, named after a rotting dragon. A world-famous, deeply respected rotting dragon, but a rotting dragon all the same. There is an even weirder origin story for the place itself. One old tradition says Apollo needed priests for his shiny new shrine, so he spotted a ship of Cretan sailors out at sea, turned himself into a dolphin, and leapt aboard. He steered the terrified crew all the way to shore, revealed himself as a god, and informed them they now worked for him. That, supposedly, is where the name Delphi comes from, the Greek word for dolphin. And before any of that, the oracle had already passed through a couple of divine owners, from Gaia, the earth goddess, down to the goddess Themis, before Apollo muscled in and took over the family business for good. Apollo's victory was such a big deal that they threw a festival for it. The Pythian Games, held every 4 years and ranked second in prestige only to the Olympics. But Delphi added its own twist. While the Olympics were all about muscle, the Pythian Games started with contests of music and poetry, fitting for Apollo, the god of both. So your home turf basically invented the idea that the arts deserved a championship too. Apollo works part-time. You would assume that being the mouthpiece of a major god is a full-time, year-round commitment. It absolutely was not. You worked 1 day a month, a single day, the 7th, believed to be Apollo's birthday. For the other 29 or so days, the most famous oracle in the ancient world was simply closed for business. It gets stranger. You only worked 9 months out of 12. For the 3 winter months, the Greeks believed Apollo left town entirely to go live among the Hyperboreans, a mythical people way up in the frozen north. And while the boss was on his winter holiday, the god Dionysus, deity of wine and partying, moved in and ran the sanctuary in his place. So for a full quarter of every year, the holiest prophecy site in Greece was being managed by the god of getting wasted. Frankly, that explains a lot. Here is the detail nobody expects. The Greeks believed Dionysus was actually buried at Delphi, his tomb tucked right inside Apollo's own temple. So the most sober, rational prophecy center in the ancient world doubled as the grave of the god of wild abandon. Order and chaos, sharing one sacred address, taking turns running the place. It was history's most prestigious timeshare, so really do the math on your calendar. You worked roughly 9 days a year. The kings of Lydia, the generals of Athens, the lawmakers of Sparta, they all had to plan their biggest decisions around the work schedule of one part-time grandmother. If you missed your slot, you waited, sometimes for months, camping out in the sacred town, spending money the entire time, and praying the goat would be in a good mood. Which, yes, we need to talk about the goat. The goat decides. Before you said a single prophetic word, the day itself had to be approved. Not by a priest, not by a king, by a goat. The ritual went like this. They would take a goat and sprinkle it with cold water, and they would watch. If the goat shivered and trembled all over, the omen was good, Apollo was present, and the oracle was open. If the goat just stood there, dry and unbothered, the day was cancelled. No prophecy. Pack it up. The strategic future of an entire empire could come down to whether a single farm animal happened to feel a chill. And as you will find out shortly, ignoring that goat could get someone killed. Assuming the goat played along, you had your own preparations. You would fast, then head down to the Castalian spring to purify yourself in its cold mountain water. You would put on the ceremonial outfit, drink from the sacred Cassotis spring, and take up a sprig of laurel, Apollo's plant. Some accounts say you chewed the bay leaves too, which has since launched 1,000 lazy theories that the laurel itself got you high. It almost certainly did not. Chewing bay leaves mostly just leaves you with a mouthful of bay leaves. Your customers, meanwhile, had a checklist of their own. They had to pay a fee called the Polanos, which started its life as a humble sacrificial cake and gradually turned into, basically, cash. The bigger and richer the client, the bigger the payment. Then they had to offer a sacrifice and wait their turn, unless they had promantia. That was the ancient VIP pass, the official right to jump the entire line and consult you before everybody else. Which cities got it? Mostly the ones who had donated generously to the sanctuary. So even when you were trying to get a message from the divine, money could still buy you a better place in line. Even the gods, it seems, kept a fast lane for the wealthy. Some things about humanity never change. Down into the smoke. Now for the part everyone remembers. When the moment finally came, you descended into the Adyton, the forbidden inner chamber underneath the temple floor. The word Adyton literally means do not enter, which tells you exactly how off-limits this space was to ordinary mortals. Down there, you took your seat on a tall bronze tripod, a 3-legged stool set directly over an opening in the rock. And out of that opening came the pneuma. Pneuma means breath, or vapor, and it was the active ingredient in the whole operation. The ancient writers described a sweet-smelling gas rising up from a crack in the earth, putting you into a trance, a state in which the god could enter you and speak through your mouth. Plutarch, who actually worked as a priest at Delphi and so knew the place from the inside, described the scent as sweet, the smell of expensive perfume. He also admitted, a little awkwardly for the family business, that in his own day the vapor had grown weak and unpredictable, which clearly worried him. The geographer Strabo described the same setup, a vapor drifting up from a small opening that threw whoever sat above it into a divine state of possession. Your visitor never got to talk to you directly, by the way. They handed their question to the priests, sometimes scratched onto a lead tablet, and the priests passed it along. You were not there to chat. You were there to be the channel, the open phone line between a desperate human and a god who answered, at his absolute best, in moody hints. So you would breathe it in, laurel in hand, perched on your tripod over a glowing crack in the world. You would begin to speak. Sometimes you answered a direct question, sometimes the words came in a rush. And the pilgrim in front of you, the one who had traveled for weeks, paid a fortune, and killed a perfectly healthy animal for the privilege, would lean in close to catch what the god was saying through the mouth of a peasant grandmother in a young girl's dress. And here's the wild part. It worked. For roughly 1,000 years, it kept working. High on the job. This is the question everyone really wants answered. So let's get into it. Were you breathing genuine mind-altering gas, or was the whole thing an elaborate piece of theater? For most of the 20th century, scholars firmly said theater. When French archaeologists dug up Delphi around the year 1900, they went looking for the legendary chasm and its magical fumes. And they found absolutely nothing. No crack, no gas, no evidence at all. By 1950, the leading expert, a man named Pierre Amandri, declared the gas story a complete myth, pointing out that you don't get intoxicating fumes without volcanic activity, and Delphi sits nowhere near a volcano. Case closed, everyone agreed. Except it wasn't. In the 1990s, a geologist named Gel de Boer joined forces with an archaeologist named John Hale and took a fresh look at the site. They discovered that not one but two fault lines cross directly beneath the temple. The rock down there is a bituminous limestone, which is loaded with petrochemicals. When those faults grind and heat the rock, they can release light hydrocarbon gases. The team even detected traces of one in particular, ethylene, in a nearby spring. Ethylene is sweet-smelling, exactly as Plutarch reported, and it was actually used as a medical anesthetic in the early 20th century, causing euphoria in small amounts and a wild, dangerous delirium in large ones. All of a sudden, the trance had a real chemistry behind it. It is a brilliant theory. It is also very far from settled. Critics, including the historian Darren LaHoo, argue that the gas levels found at the site were far too low to actually intoxicate anyone and that you simply cannot run a 1,000-year religious institution on a faint whiff of fumes. So, were you, the Pythia, genuinely high on the job? The honest answer is that nobody knows for sure, and the experts are still going at it. What we do know is that you believed it, the kings believed it, and belief turned out to be the most powerful drug in the entire building. And belief, unlike any gas, never thinned out or drifted away on a bad day. The goat was right. Remember that shivering goat, the one that decided whether the oracle opened at all? Here is the story of why nobody dared to overrule it. Plutarch records a day when the signs were clearly bad. The goat refused to cooperate, which meant Apollo wanted the day off. But an important delegation had already arrived, and the priests, not wanting to turn away high-paying VIPs, pressured the Pythia to go down and prophesy anyway. Against the ritual, against the goat. It went catastrophically wrong. Instead of slipping into her usual calm trance, the Pythia came back broken. Her voice turned harsh and groaning. She thrashed about wildly, and she filled the chamber with a horrible, inhuman shriek before bolting for the exit and collapsing. Everyone present, priests and visitors alike, fled the room in terror. Within a few days, she was dead. The gas theorists adore this story because it has all the hallmarks of poisoning. A normal dose producing a trance, an overdose producing a corpse. But honestly, you don't need any chemistry to get the lesson. The system had a safety check. The goat was that safety check. And the one recorded time human greed overrode the goat, the oracle died for it. So the rule for you is simple. When the priests admit the omens are bad and suggest you skip the day, you skip the day. A great empire will fall. Now let's talk about your greatest hits. Because as the Pythia, you delivered some of the most quoted lines in all of human history. And your most legendary client was King Croesus of Lydia, a man so staggeringly rich that the Greeks turned his name into a synonym for wealth itself. Before he trusted you with anything important, Croesus decided to test every famous oracle on earth. He sent messengers out with orders to ask, on one specific predetermined day, what the king was doing at that precise moment. Back home, Croesus made sure to do the single weirdest thing he could invent. He chopped up a tortoise and a lamb and boiled them together in a bronze pot with a bronze lid. According to Herodotus, only Delphi got it right. Your reply opened with a flourish, announcing that you knew the number of the grains of sand and the measure of the sea, that you understood the mute and heard the silent. Then, almost casually, it described the smell of a hard-shelled tortoise simmering in bronze alongside lamb. Croesus was instantly convinced you were the real deal, so he returned with the question that actually mattered. Should he go to war against the rising power of Persia? Your answer. If Croesus attacks, he will destroy a great empire. Wonderful, thought Croesus, and he marched off to fight the Persians. He lost, completely. The great empire he ended up destroying was, of course, his own. When he furiously sent word back to complain, the oracle essentially shrugged and pointed out that he really should have asked which empire, and this is your signature move in a nutshell. You are never wrong, you are simply, occasionally, misunderstood by people who didn't bother to read the fine print. Wooden walls and wisdom. Croesus was no fluke. Your prophecies kept turning up at the absolute biggest turning points in history. In 480 BC, the Persian king Xerxes came thundering toward Greece with a colossal army, and the panicking Athenians rushed to you for guidance. The first answer you gave was pure nightmare fuel, telling them to flee to the ends of the earth, that their city was doomed, that fire and war would leave nothing standing. The Athenian envoys were so shattered they flat out refused to accept it and begged for a second opinion, which, against all the usual rules, you actually gave them. Your second answer told them that everything would fall, but that a wooden wall would keep them safe, and it spoke of a divine Salamis that would bring death to the sons of women. Reassuring, right? The Athenians argued furiously about what it meant. Some were convinced the wooden wall meant the old thorn fence around the Acropolis, but a sharp politician named Themistocles insisted it meant their navy, their fleet of wooden ships, and that calling Salamis divine, rather than hateful, meant the enemy would die there, not them. Athens gambled everything on his interpretation, abandoned their own city, and went on to crush the Persian fleet at the Battle of Salamis. One of the most decisive victories in Western history came down to how you read a single metaphor. You weren't just for kings and generals either. When a friend of the philosopher Socrates asked you whether any man alive was wiser than Socrates, you answered that no one was. Socrates, who loudly insisted that he knew nothing, spent the rest of his life chewing on what you meant, and finally decided the point was that real wisdom is understanding how little you actually know. Carved above the entrance to your own temple were two short phrases that summed up the entire Greek philosophy of life. Know thyself and nothing in excess. 2,500 years later, people still get those words tattooed on their bodies. You were handing out timeless life advice before it was even remotely cool. Even the Spartan lawgiver Lycurgus came to consult you, and the legend says you greeted him by wondering aloud whether to call him a man or a god, then helped lay the groundwork for Sparta's entire constitution. Not bad for a part-time job. Neither speaks nor conceals. Time to demolish a myth about yourself, because pop culture has genuinely done you wrong. The picture most people carry around is of the oracle as a woman foaming at the mouth, eyes rolled back, screeching pure gibberish, while a circle of scheming priests translates the nonsense into clever poems. It makes for a fantastic movie scene. It is also mostly invented. A lot of that lurid image comes from much later writers, some of them poets reaching for drama, others Christian critics determined to make pagan religion look absurd. It also got hopelessly tangled up with a separate prophetess called the Sibyl, who genuinely was described as wild and raving. Heraclitus, writing around the same era, described that Sibyl with her raving mouth, uttering grim, joyless, unadorned things, her voice somehow carrying across 1,000 years through the god inside her. Gorgeous line. Completely different woman. But the actual recorded answers from Delphi, and historians have catalogued hundreds of them, are frequently clear, coherent, and even kind of boring. Loads of ordinary people came to you with practical questions. Should we plant a colony over here? Should I marry this particular person? Is now a good time to make the deal? And you gave plenty of plain, useful answers. Did the priests sometimes help polish your responses into proper verse? Maybe. That part is honestly still debated by scholars. But the popular idea that you were just a babbling vessel while the men did all the real intellectual work is pretty thin. Plenty of answers are recorded as your own words. The philosopher Heraclitus put it perfectly around 500 BC, describing how the Lord of Delphi neither speaks nor conceals, but gives a sign. That right there was the genius of the whole operation. You didn't give commands. You gave riddles that people had to solve for themselves, which meant that when things went well, Apollo got the credit, and when they went badly, the blame landed squarely on whoever interpreted you wrong. It is a strategy you ran on the powerful again and again. King Philip of Macedon, father of Alexander the Great, reportedly got a prophecy about a wreathed bull ready for sacrifice. He happily decided the doomed bull meant Persia, lined up for slaughter. It turned out the garlanded victim was Philip himself, assassinated soon after. And the Emperor Nero was supposedly warned to beware the number 73. He assumed it meant he'd comfortably live to 73. Instead, a 73-year-old general named Galba led the revolt that toppled him. Every single time, the words were true. People just heard what they wanted to hear. Closing time. So how does it all end? Your career as the living voice of a god. Slowly, and then all at once. By the time Plutarch was writing in the 1st and 2nd centuries AD, the oracle was already in decline. He sat down and wrote an entire essay trying to work out why the oracles of Greece were going silent, why the sacred vapor had weakened, why fewer and fewer pilgrims were making the trip. He called it On the Obsolescence of Oracles, which is about the most depressing title a man can give to a report on his own employer. His best guess was that the gods were quietly withdrawing from the world, that the age of speaking to them face to face was simply running out. The Roman world was shifting under everyone's feet. New religions were spreading fast, and a peasant woman breathing fumes on a mountainside seemed less a prophet than a holdover from an older age. Then, Christianity became the official religion of the Roman Empire, and the old pagan oracles went from charming to outright illegal. Around 393 AD, the Emperor Theodosius shut the entire operation down for good. There is a famous, haunting line that tradition remembers as the very last prophecy ever spoken at Delphi, supposedly given to an envoy of the Emperor Julian, who had tried and failed to bring the old gods back. Scholars seriously doubt it is authentic, but it is far too perfect to leave out. The oracle's final message was this: "Tell the king the fair wrought hall has fallen to the ground. Apollo no longer has his house, nor his prophetic laurel, nor the spring that speaks. The talking water has dried up. After more than 1,000 years, the navel of the world fell silent. The kings stopped coming. The goat finally got every day off." And somewhere on the slopes of Mount Parnassus, an old woman in a young girl's dress climbed down off her tripod for the very last time, and nobody bothered to write down her name. Wake up at 3 in the morning. You are 11 years old. Your hair is matted with last week's blood from your own earlobes, and your job today is to sweep a temple platform the size of a small village before any commoner in Tenochtitlan opens their eyes. Welcome to your life as an Aztec sacrifice priestess. It is somehow even more intense than that sentence. 6 years old, dedicated. Let us back up. You did not choose this. When you were about 6, your parents walked you through the canals of the floating city, past the Chinampa gardens and the canoes full of dried chilies, all the way to a temple that smelled of copal smoke and old corn. They handed you to a senior priestess in a black soot-painted face, and they told the goddess, "This baby is yours now. Please be kind to her." They were, by Aztec standards, doing you a favor. They had probably already lost siblings of yours to illness. They had probably already buried someone last year. Dedicating you to the gods was a hedge. The gods, the thinking went, would treat their own staff with mercy. You were called Siwatlamakask, which translates as woman giver of things to the gods. This is the technical term for what you do, and it sounds a lot more pleasant than the actual workload. Above you are senior priestesses who run the place. Below you, in the same Kalmakak school, are even younger initiates also chosen at 6. Beside you are the Siwapipiltin, daughters of noble warriors who got dropped off for political reasons rather than spiritual ones. They will outrank you. They will eat better food than you. They will also, statistically, leave earlier to marry a general. For now, though, all of you wear the same plain cotton whipple and sleep on the same mat in the same windowless dormitory. And all of you are about to spend the next decade learning how to bleed politely. School of Thorns. The Kalmakak is the elite religious school, and the word means row of houses. Yours sits inside the temple precinct of the goddess Tochi, whose name translates roughly as our grandmother. That sounds gentle. She is not gentle. Tochi is the earth itself, in its devouring mode, the one who eats corpses, also the patron of midwives, also the patron of weavers, also the patron of military victory. Aztec theology liked compression. Your curriculum is brutal in a specific way. You spend hours every day memorizing songs. There are hundreds of them, in Old Nahuatl that is already archaic when you start learning it, and each goddess has her own meter and her own forbidden mistakes. A skipped beat is not a stylistic problem. A skipped beat is a theological failure that can, depending on which priestess catches it, get you slapped or get you fasted for 3 days, or get you praying through the night until you stop making it. You learn the tonal Pawali, the 260-day sacred calendar, and the Xiu Pawali, the 365-day solar calendar, and you learn how the two of them interlock to produce a 52-year cycle that the cosmos uses to measure whether it is allowed to keep existing. If those two calendars desynchronize, in the official version, the universe ends. You, an 11-year-old, are partially responsible for making sure that does not happen. You learn to weave. The loom is treated as a model of the universe. Every cloth you finish is, in some real sense, the universe in miniature, and the priests who consecrate it are not being metaphorical when they call it a sacred object. The Chalchihuitl pattern, made of overlapping diamond shapes meant to represent precious stones, can take 3 months on a single tunic. And you learn the thorns. The Maggie plant grows in any patch of sun you can find in central Mexico, and its spines come pre-sharpened. Around age 10, you are taught the auto-sacrifice ritual, which is the polite term for piercing your own earlobes, your own tongue, sometimes your own calves, with a maguey thorn, letting the blood drip onto thin sheets of bark paper, and then burning the paper as an offering. It is called Next Leo Alizli, the debt payment, because Aztec theology runs on a debt model. The gods made the world by spilling their blood. You owe them yours back forever. With interest, you will do this several times a week for the rest of your life. By your late teens, your hair, which is never washed, will be visibly stiffened with rust-colored streaks. Your tongue, which has been pierced many times, will be permanently scarred. Spaniards who arrive in 1519 are going to write home that you and your colleagues resemble demons. The Spaniards are going to be incorrect about a lot of things. In between the songs and the calendar and the bleeding, you will also learn divination. You will be trained to read the patterns of corn kernels thrown onto a folded cloth, to interpret the meaning of dreams that your initiates report back to you, to identify which day of the tonal Powali a sick child was born on, and what that means for the kind of prayer required. You will memorize the appropriate name for every ailment, and which goddess has the franchise rights to fix it. By the time you are 15, you have absorbed the kind of information that, in a different civilization, would require a doctorate and 3 years of postdoc work. You also still have to sweep at 3 in the morning. Sweep, bleed, repeat. A normal day, you wake at 3, you sweep. The broom is a sacred tool called a tialak poaloni, and the act of sweeping is itself an offering to the goddesses of dirt and purification, especially Tosi, and her partner deity Tlazolteotl, whose name translates as filth eater, and who is exactly as glamorous as that title implies. Tlazolteotl is the goddess in charge of forgiving sexual transgressions, eating moral garbage, and dealing with menstruation and childbirth, which are categorized in Aztec thought as kinds of holy filth that need a specialist deity to handle. You are sweeping at 3 in the morning because Tlazolteotl is hungry. After sweeping, you sing dawn prayers facing east, sometimes drawing your own blood again, and then you eat a bowl of plain corn gruel with water, no salt, no kili, no pulque, which is the fermented Maggi drink that everyone else in the city is using to start their day. You will not taste salt or chili for years at a time, depending on which festival cycle you are inside. The fasting is not a personal choice. It is the operating manual. You spend the morning at a loom or preparing copal incense, or studying the calendar or training the younger girls. Midday, you might eat once more, or you might not, depending on the season. Afternoon, you sweep again. Evening, you sing more songs, light the temple fires that are not allowed to ever go out, and observe the stars to confirm the cosmos is still on schedule. At midnight, you wake up to pray. This is called Huitzli, the thorn hour, and at Huitzli you stand barefoot on cold stone. You draw blood again, and the temple is silent except for somebody else somewhere in the city, doing the same thing. This is your normal. Now we should talk about the special occasions. Goddesses, pick your boss. There are many goddesses in the Aztec pantheon, and you might end up assigned to any of them. Your specific assignment shapes the rest of your life in ways that range from inconvenient to medically catastrophic. If you serve Coatlicue, whose name translates as serpent skirt, you tend the shrine of the mother of all Aztec gods, the one who got impregnated by a ball of feathers and gave birth to Huitzilopochtli, the god of war and the patron deity of Tenochtitlan itself. Coatlicue's statue still exists. You can go look at her in the National Anthropology Museum in Mexico City right now. She has serpents for a head, serpents for a skirt, and a necklace of severed hands and hearts. Her vibe is on theme. If you serve Chicomico Adl, whose name translates as Seven Serpent, you are tending the corn goddess, and your work is gentler. You memorize harvest songs. You manage the maize stores. Once a year, in April, you assist the great vigil for planting season, which we will get back to. If you serve Xochiquetzal, precious flower, you maintain literal gardens in the temple precinct. You weave the most beautiful textiles in the city. You are also, awkwardly, the patron deity of the Oname, the women who entertain warriors at official festivals, and whose relationship to the sacred is what scholars politely call ambiguous. Your office party is genuinely fun. Your morality looks complicated to the Spaniards. If you serve Tlazolteotl, the filth eater we already met, you become the local equivalent of a priest who hears confession. People come to you with sexual transgressions, and you absolve them, on the understanding that you can only do this once per lifetime per customer. It is, structurally, the most generous and the most terrifying clergy gig in town. And if you serve Mayawel, the 400-breasted goddess of the Magu plant from whom pulque is made, you manage the production of ritual fermented drink. You are also, occasionally, the only sober person at the festival, which is its own kind of religious experience, becoming the goddess. We need to talk about the Ixiptla. This is the Nahuatl word for representative or image, and in this context, it refers to a person who literally becomes a god or goddess on earth for a defined period, usually a year, until that god or goddess needs to be sent back to the spirit world. Sent back, in this context, means game overed in front of an audience. You might not be selected to be an Ixiptla. Most priestesses are not, but you might be in charge of preparing one, which is psychologically its own kind of ride. The Tosi Ixiptla is the most documented case in Sahagun's Florentine Codex. Some months before the Festival of Ochpaniztli, a young woman, probably late teens to early 20s, often a commoner, is chosen. From that moment, by official definition, she is the goddess Tochi on earth. She wears Tochi's robes, eats Tochi's food, sleeps in Tochi's bed, and receives the offerings the city is making to Tochi, because she is Tochi. The fact that she also still has the brain of an 18-year-old farm girl from a neighborhood across the lake is, in the official version, beside the point. You feed her. You wash her. You sing her to sleep. You bring her flowers. You explain her duties to her in the divine voice. You, specifically, are responsible for making sure she does not panic. The Aztec sources hint at sedation, possibly with morning glory seeds or psilocybin mushrooms or datura, possibly with rotation of all three depending on the day. The drugs are not a perk, they are inventory. The same job exists for the Chicomecoatl Ixipla, the corn goddess representative, who is usually a younger girl, dressed in yellow and white, paraded through the city with corn stalks in her arms during Huitzilopochtli in April. Her end is also game overed, but the choreography is different. She is decapitated rather than disassembled, and her blood is given to the earth so that next year's corn knows where to come up. Different goddess, different ceremony, same outcome. Festival of the Broom. Ochpaniztli is the great sweeping festival, the 11th month of the calendar, falling roughly in late August into September, right before the harvest. The word means the sweeping and refers both to the literal cleaning of every temple in the city and to the cosmic sweeping away of the old agricultural year. For an Aztec priestess, this is the Super Bowl of the year. It is what your training has been pointing at. For weeks beforehand you fast. You do not eat salt. You barely eat at all. You bathe in cold water before sunrise. You draw your own blood every 12 hours. You teach the Tochi Ixipla her steps. You weave the white embroidered huipil she will wear when she becomes the goddess in front of the city. You do not sleep, because the schedule does not allow sleep. On the night of the ceremony itself, you join a procession that moves by torchlight across the precinct. You sing the specific songs of Tochi, in an old Nahuatl meter that you have practiced for 10 years. The Ixipla, in her finished regalia, moves at the center of the group. She is, at this moment, the goddess. The senior priests do their work at the Technocali, the stone of the gods. We will not film it in detail. The historical version involves a ceremonial spatula carved from black volcanic glass, an offering held up toward the sky, and the kind of red confetti that produces vivid Spanish memoirs. What happens after is, somehow, even stranger. A priest puts on the Xipla's flayed ceremonial garment and dances through the streets of Tenochtitlan in it, and you and the other priestesses follow, singing, sprinkling cornmeal, throwing shouts and rattles. The earth has shed her skin, and the corn has been called up for next year. You are exhausted. You will sleep for 2 days. The crops grow on schedule. Everyone agrees the ceremony was correct. Twin pyramid, twin gods. The Templo Mayor sits at the center of Tenochtitlan and at the center of your life. It is officially called Huitzilopochtli, the Great House of the Gods, and it is a stepped pyramid roughly 50 meters tall with 2 shrines at the top, dedicated to 2 gods who hate each other in theory but share a roof in practice. On the south side, Huitzilopochtli, the hummingbird of the south, god of war and patron of the Aztec state. On the north side, Tlaloc, god of rain, war and water, the 2 things you need to keep the city alive. The pyramid is rebuilt and enlarged every few decades, with each emperor adding another shell of stone on top of the previous one. The result is an architectural onion of escalating ambition. By the time the Spanish show up, there are at least 7 layers. The most ambitious rebuild happened in 1487 under the Emperor Ahuitzotl, who, depending on which Spanish source you believe, sacrificed somewhere between 4,000 and 80,000 people over 4 days at the rededication. Modern historians lean toward the lower end of that range, and they also note that Spanish chroniclers had every motive in the world to inflate the number. Either way, the rededication was, by historical standards, an event. You, as a priestess, do not work on the topmost shrines. The actual sacrificial duties at the Technocali belong to specialized priests called Itztlapilk, who train for years on the specific technique. Your job is the temple precinct around the base, the side shrines, the smaller chambers, the women's processions, the songs, the body of the ceremony. The Spanish are going to assume that all priests do everything, and that all rituals involve heart offerings, because the Spanish are going to be running on adrenaline and bad translation for most of 1519. In 2015, archaeologists, led by Eduardo Matos Moctezuma, found at Tzompantli, a skull rack, beneath what is now downtown Mexico City. The bones are real. The rack held around 650 skulls when they found it, though the original probably held several thousand. The discovery confirms that the scale was real, while also confirming that the Spaniards were lying about the headline number. Both things, somehow, are true at once. When you pass the Tzompantli on your way to your duties, which you do most days, the skulls look back at you with no particular meaning. They are not warnings. They are not threats. They are receipts. Aztec theology runs on debt, and the Tzompantli is the city's accounts ledger, posted publicly, updated regularly. Each skull is, in the local way of thinking, a debt that was paid forward by someone in service of keeping the sun on its schedule. You were trained to read the rack as a kind of religious calendar, where each skull marked a moment that the universe got fed. None of that translates into Spanish. Soot, salt, blood. Let us talk about how you actually look and feel inside this body, day to day. Your face is painted with soot and ochre. The pattern depends on which goddess you serve. The black is not decoration. It is a marker of your debt to the gods through auto-sacrifice. The Spanish will write that you look terrifying. From the inside, you are just someone wearing a uniform. Your hair is long and never cut. It is also rarely washed, because washing it would mean removing the rust-colored evidence of your devotion. You have small punctures in your earlobes, healing in stages, dating back to when you were 10 years old. Your tongue has been pierced many times. You have small scars on your calves. Your diet is corn, beans, occasionally squash, sometimes amaranth tamales, as offerings that you then eat after the gods have had a turn. No salt for weeks at a time. No chili for stretches that feel cruel in central Mexico, where the cuisine pivots on chili. No meat, except for the rare ceremonial meal during the biggest festivals. Pulque is forbidden to you most of the time, although certain festivals require you to drink it, and you will be told exactly when. You sleep on a woven mat. You own 2 huipils. You own 1 ceremonial exicoli for special occasions. You own a small jade earring you were given at your final vows. You own the magui thorns. You do not own anything else, because there is nothing else you need. You are, at the same time, one of the most educated people in the entire empire. You read pictographs. You know astronomy. You can compose a song in the meter of an extinct dialect. You can name 260 days of the sacred calendar and the goddess attached to each. If you survive, and many priestesses do, you will retire eventually with the kind of authority that lets you walk through the city without ever being questioned by anyone. You also know things nobody outside the temple knows. You know which herbs reduce a fever, and which ones induce labor, and which ones can quietly end a pregnancy that is going to end the mother. You know how to set a bone. You know which constellations are visible right before a drought year. You know how to talk a panicking new mother through a difficult birth, and you know what to whisper into the ear of a dying soldier when the family asks for last rites. You are, in the language of a much later century, a midwife, a doctor, a therapist, a calendar, a librarian, and a chaplain, all in one person, all before the age of 25. You also still smell like copal smoke and dried blood, which is, by Aztec standards, the smell of competence. Warrior of the cradle. The single most important Aztec idea that you are walking around with is this: a woman who game overs during childbirth is a warrior. She is the female equivalent of the man who game overs in battle. Both are honored equally. Both join the journey of the sun. Male warriors who fall in combat join the sun's procession from sunrise to noon, going east to overhead. Women who fall in childbirth join the sun's procession from noon to sunset, going overhead to west. The afterlife is, in this sense, completely gender-symmetric, and the cosmos is split in half, and both halves are held up by Aztec bodies. This shapes everything about how you understand your life. Childbirth is not a domestic event. It is military service. The midwives, the tisital, are not just medical professionals. They are religious officials, trained in the Kalmakak alongside you, and they invoke Tochi and Chicomeco Atl during the labor itself. The Sihua Teteo, the spirits of women who graduated by way of the cradle, are warriors with their own honored shrines on the western edges of the city. People bring them offerings the same way they bring offerings to fallen soldiers. If you choose to leave temple service at 20 or 25, which many priestesses do, you can marry. Your years of religious training make you, on paper, an excellent bride. You are literate, you are disciplined, you can teach your future daughters everything you learn. If you stay in temple service for life, you live as a senior Siwatla Makask, and at some point you take final vows of celibacy and authority, and you train the next round of 6-year-olds the way your senior priestesses once trained you. Either way, the cosmos expects you to be one of 2 kinds of warrior, the kind in the temple, or the kind in the birthing room. Either one earns you a place in the sun's daily journey when you reach the end. August of 1521. In the spring of 1519, a Spanish expedition under Hernán Cortés lands on the coast of what is now Veracruz. They begin moving inland. They make alliances with the Tlaxcalans, who have been at war with the Aztecs for generations and who are extremely ready to join an outside team against Tenochtitlan. They reach the city in November. The Emperor Moctezuma II receives them. Then everything begins to go wrong in a way that none of your songs prepared you for. In May of 1520, during the Festival of Tenochtitlan, while Cortés is away dealing with rival Spaniards on the coast, his deputy Pedro de Alvarado orders Spanish soldiers to massacre the Aztec nobles and priests who have gathered for the ceremony. Hundreds of people are game-overed in the precinct of the Templo Mayor itself. The dead include musicians, dancers, priests in mid-prayer, and possibly priestesses, your colleagues, people you trained with, people who slept on the next mat over from yours when you were 9 years old. A year later, after a brutal siege that introduces smallpox to a city whose immune systems have no prior negotiation with European pathogens, on August 13, 1521, Tenochtitlan falls. The siege itself was a coordinated assault by Cortés, his remaining Spanish soldiers, and tens of thousands of Tlaxcalan warriors, plus a famine inside the walls, plus disease. Estimates of how many people died in those 10 weeks vary by source. The lowest credible estimate is 100,000. The highest is 3 times that. The Spanish destroy the Templo Mayor. They smash the goddess statues. They burn the Comicac records. They use the stones of the pyramid to build a cathedral that still stands at the center of Mexico City today. If you are still alive at that point, you are either captured, hidden in the countryside, baptized by force, or already gone. The formal priesthood is over within 50 years. But not everything ends. The goddess Tochi does not disappear. She is identified, slowly, with the Virgin Mary, and eventually with the Virgin of Guadalupe, whose shrine sits on a hill north of Mexico City that was, in your lifetime, a shrine to Tonantzin, the mother goddess associated with Tosi. Modern Mexican Catholic practice is full of fragments of what you spent your life maintaining. Dia de los Muertos. Marigolds at the altars. The ritual sweeping, the midwives still invoking older names under their breath. The Maggie thorn is gone, but the discipline of debt payment is still there, just rewritten. You are a sacrifice priestess in a city that no longer exists, in a religion that was officially deleted, serving goddesses whose images survived by hiding inside the iconography of a different one. The calendar got swapped out, the songs got banned, the copal smoke is still rising. The next priestess is 6 years old, somewhere, sweeping a courtyard before sunrise, and she does not know yet whose grandmother she belongs to.